plan they choose, but I think the Platinum is 10.
Really? Hi, I'm Fritz Erickson. Welcome to parent orientation via Zoom. These are new for us. I have to admit right from the get-go, I really like parent orientation and student orientation. You know, normally we have folks here for 2.5 days. We create great bonding experiences, really help parents prepare for what's going on, help students. You know, they come in, immediately develop and make lifelong friendships. It's truly an amazing thing to see. But we live in a bit of a different world today, and we thought we'd start off with a little bit of an overview of what we're doing and give me an opportunity to give a little advice. As my children will say, that's what I do for a living, is give people advice. And I hope your children are better than mine, because my children seem to seldom listen to my advice. Although as they're getting older, they seem better about it. I don't know. It's, Northern Michigan University is an extraordinary place. I've been in higher ed literally my whole life. I grew up as the son of faculty members and lived an academic life, worked at half a dozen universities and ended up at Northern, and Northern's truly an extraordinary place. We have an amazing faculty and staff. We have a community that's so very supportive. And with all that's going on, particularly around COVID-19, I can't think of a better place to be than right here at Northern Michigan University. And I'm sure we'll answer a lot of questions about that as we go along. Normally, what I like to do, particularly when I talk to the students, is talk about what's really important. And for so long, students are told, or for so often, students are told through high school and beyond, that getting into college, going to college, that's the goal. Well, I hate to kind of burst that bubble, but the goal is not to go to college. The goal is to graduate from college. And our commitment as a community of educators and learners, we're all about getting to that goal. And to get to that goal really comes down to three things on the part of your sons and daughters. First, if they have the opportunity to find and pick a major for which they have a real passion, that makes all the difference in the world. There's no question about it. College is an enormous amount of work. They will study harder and longer than they ever thought they could or would. The idea of kind of skating through just doesn't happen. It's a lot of work. But if you have a major for which you have a real passion, and there we have 180 different programs, and students find that. And if your son or daughter doesn't have one picked out, that's terrific, because there's an opportunity to really learn and find and pick that kind of a major. And because if they do, then the work doesn't seem nearly as daunting. It's because it's something that they have such an interest. The second thing, and it's very important, is for our students to make direct personal connections with our amazing faculty and staff. And it is true, we have an amazing faculty and staff. Our faculty come from among the most prestigious institutions in the country. The folks that we turn down come from the most amazing institutions in the country. All the big names that you think of when you think of prestigious universities, our faculty come from them. And when you ask them why, they'll almost always tell you the same two reasons. First, they want to have a direct personal connection with students. That's very important to our faculty. And it's not just getting to know them by name. It's getting to know who they are, to help them develop and grow and mature and, share the passion for what they've spent a lifetime studying with these students. And it's such a great thing. And all a student has to do is just reach out to those faculty members. And you'll find that there's such a great connection. By the way, the other reason our faculty are here is the extraordinary lifestyle that we all get to live here in Marquette and in the Upper Peninsula. It's unlike any place, certainly, I've ever been. This is as friendly and welcoming a community as I've certainly been exposed to. And I often caution folks that come from other places. I say, look, you're going to go walk downtown. You're going to get into these wonderful, quaint and wonderful little shops and great restaurants. And as you walk along, people are going to stop you and ask you where you're from and smile at you. Please don't freak out. This is who we are. We are a very engaged community. And, you know, heaven forbid if you get stuck in a snowbank, if you don't get out of your car in 45 seconds, there'll be 4 or 5 cars surrounding you to push you out of the snowbank. I mean, that's the kind of community that we have. Very, very supportive. And our faculty and our staff really embrace that and are very much part of that community. The last piece of advice I would give, and maybe the most important of all, and that is get involved. The more students join and become involved, the more they're likely to graduate. Their graduation rates just go up. And it may seem counterintuitive if your son or daughter says, oh, I can't join something, I'm so busy studying. Don't buy it. Those students that, you know, get involved with student government, join an organization, are involved in intramural sports, and join a club team. You know, we have over 350 different clubs or organizations. You can join the surfing club. It seems a little odd to me to be surfing in November here, but our students love doing that. Or, I mean, we even had students that created and launched the Sasquatch Search Club. And they go tramp around in the woods and look for Sasquatch. A little different for me. Can't figure out what they're going to do when they find Sasquatch. But, you know, it's really about a bonding. And the collegiate experience is so much more than what happens in a classroom. It's that connection to one another that's so very, very important. And when you belong like that, you have a support group. So when you really don't feel like going to class or you really didn't want to work on that paper, you have people that are there to really help. And it, you know, I have the good fortune of being able to talk with alums. And not too long ago, I was talking to a group of alums that were here for a 50th reunion. And they talked about all those friendships, the lifelong friendships that they have made. Many of them married one another, you know, but I'm not going there. You know, it's just an amazing thing to see. The collegiate experience, particularly at Northern, is so extraordinary, and we're just absolutely delighted to welcome your sons and daughters here. Our commitment is to get them to graduate. Our commitment is their health and safety. We work very hard on all of those things, and I'm sure we'll answer many of those questions. So with that, welcome to the evening, and I will turn it over to our wonderful Dean of Students, Chris Greer.
Hi, everyone. We're very happy that you've joined us this evening. The President and I will answer your questions in just a bit. You can text your questions to 906-224-2032. If we don't get to your question, you can expect that an email response within the next couple days. So, how does it feel? You're getting ready to send your child off to college. I have been you 4 times, and by some miracle, my kids all made it. There were some bumps along the way, but also some great adventures. My last 2 graduated from college in 2015, and they are not twins. They are 7 years apart in age. So that's a very good story, and maybe I'll get to tell you that in person in August. 3 of them graduated from Northern. It was interesting, scary, and funny, and frustrating, and contrary to my parental instincts, I lost all control. I have learned so much, sometimes about things I wish I hadn't. For instance, I learned that once someone has a tattoo, there's really nothing you can say about it that will make any difference. There are many things they will do at college that will make you cringe, cry, and get angry. The upside is that if you know about it, that means they are still talking to you, using you as a sounding board, asking for your advice. The downside is that they expect you to know the right thing to say, and that's not easy. What do we do when we get the calls that they are unhappy, failed a test, can't stand their roommate, can't find anything to eat in the cafeteria, are unsure they are in the right major, got caught with alcohol, just got a tattoo, started dating a graduate student, think taking a year off to swim with turtles in Costa Rica sounds like a good plan? And that was just my daughter. If you know her, don't tell her. I just told you all that. It is hard on us as parents, but it is okay for kids to be anxious or upset or angry or uncomfortable or sad at times. Kids need to learn what to do when things don't go well. If my child is unhappy about something, it doesn't mean I'm a bad parent, and it doesn't mean I need to fix it. Helping our students to be comfortable with being uncomfortable is actually a great gift that you can give them. It will help them cope with stress and disappointment in the future. It is important for you to start talking to your children about solving their own problems, dealing with situational anxiety and depression, taking responsibility for themselves, and learning from their mistakes. They will need these skills to thrive after college. Your student will also certainly call you with good news, news that will make you proud, make you laugh, make you think they are pretty good kids, acing a test, getting a great part-time job, becoming a president of a student organization, meeting their new best friend, having a great conversation with their academic advisor, and knowing exactly what they are going to do with the rest of their life. You need to think about your reaction to those calls too. They want you to be as excited as they are. We know that you are very important to your child's success in college. We want to work with you. That's why we do parent orientation. For your child's college career, we can be a great team. Your students care greatly about what you think, and your support not only helps them emotionally, but we know that it makes a huge difference academically as well. Now is the time to start talking to your student about how to survive in college without you. You've got about 4 weeks to get them and yourselves ready. Our goal for tonight and for the series of modules that we have created for you is to help you get to know Northern so you feel comfortable leaving your student here in August. The purpose of this next part is to get you to start thinking about important issues. The students who have already attended orientation took their first college quiz during their session. We put the link to the parent version of the quiz on the site that we set up for parents, and many of you have already answered it. So now what we want to do is compare the student answers with the parent answers. We will tell you how the majority answered each question. Let's see how you did. Okay, the first question Okay, there it is. Members of this freshman class will each spend how much per week on entertainment and incidental expenses during their first semester in college? So the parent said C, $30. And the student said B, $20. So that's exciting, right? They're actually going to spend less than you thought they were going to spend. I'm not sure that's totally realistic. $20 is not a lot of pizza. So maybe they really are going to do that. That's fantastic, good for you. But you might want to talk about that. Like, how much spending money do they really think they're going to need? And then plan accordingly. Okay, the second question. Roommates will be most likely to disagree about. The parent said D, having other people as guests in the room, and the student said C, how early or late they sleep. I don't know, this is not normal. Usually the cleanliness level of the room rises to the top for parents too. But it is an interesting thought to think that they're worried about how early or late they sleep, because they are going to have roommates, and that might be something that causes concern among the roommates. Now, 47% of students in a national survey said that they did have problems with their roommates their first semester. So it's not abnormal. They're usually not horrible problems, but usually just disagreements. So again, they need to be prepared to talk to each other about issues that they may be having, and our staff will help them solve larger problems. Okay, number 3. You've probably been waiting for this one. Alcohol use, if any, by members of this freshman class will be. The parents said 1 to 3 drinks a week. The students said 0 drinks a week. Now, this is usually the source of much amusement when you're here in person, because I don't think you really believe it. But yay, I'm happy. They're thinking they're not going to drink. Now, the reality is they probably knew somebody was going to look at this, right? And probably thought, I'm not going to really tell them what I'm going to do. But we do climate surveys on campus, and at any given time, about 30%, 28 to 30% of our students say they have not had a drink in the last 30 days. And that includes 23-year-olds. So there are many students on this campus that do not drink. Our activities that we plan do not involve alcohol. So anyone that's coming to school and doesn't want to drink should have lots of support to not drink. And they shouldn't feel pressure to drink. There are a lot of people here that will not drink. Now, the interesting thing about that question is that the response to 4 to 7 drinks a week and 8 or more drinks a week by the students was about the same percentage that said they were going to spend more than $40 a week. So there's probably a correlation there. So again, it's just something that you need to have a conversation about. Okay, number 4. The percentage of entering freshmen who have declared an academic major or plan to declare a major during this orientation session. The parents said C, 50%. The students said, yeah, 90% said that they either have declared or plan to declare a major while they were going through orientation. That's actually very high. We usually have around 80, 82%. So that's good that they think they know what they want to study. But generally, our rule of thumb is that about 75% of our students will change their major. Some of them changed it during orientation, but some of them will change their first year, and that's okay. That's all right. We can help them with that, and some of our students that want to explore may actually choose a major knowing they're not going to keep it. That's okay. For some reason, students think they have to choose one. But we are here to help students figure out what they want to major in. Okay, number 5. Freshmen intend to contact their parents how many times during their first semester? So the parents said 2 or 3 times per week, and the students said 2 or 3 times per week. So you're right on with that one. But the reality is that research shows that students contact their parents 10 to 15 times a day, and that's because of texting. So that is way up. Parental contact is way up. And the students like it. So I'm not going to tell you not to contact your students. You know, if you're driving them crazy, tell them that they should tell you if you're driving them crazy. But the students like you to be involved. And so I think that that's okay. They may be running things by you. They may just like to say, hi, my day's going great. So just know that contact might come, and it might be more than you're expecting even. But that's what you both said. So hopefully it will be at least 2 or 3 times per week. We do have some students, about 2%, that said they were only going to contact you once a semester, which is close to the number that's going to drink 8 or more drinks a week. So just throwing that out there as some correlations. Okay, number 6. Freshmen plan to study how many hours per week during their first semester of enrollment? The parents said 16 to 25 hours, and the students said 16 to 25 hours. Okay, now, you're probably really excited about that because your students probably never studied that much in high school, right? So you're like, yay, they're gonna study. Except that that's not enough. The general formula that we use is students should study 2 hours for every credit hour. So if they're in a 4-credit class, they should be studying 8 hours a week for that class, times 4. So 32 hours a week is really the target for someone taking 16 hours. And that goes up if they're taking hard science. So a hard science course, physics, for instance, the department head in physics always tells me 4 to 5 hours a week for physics. So this is a really good conversation to have. We're telling them that too, just so you know. But we want you to know so that you can reinforce the message. The scary thing to me, though, is that we had students who said, in fact, 21% said they were only going to study 5 to 15 hours per week. That is, they're not going to make it if they study 5 to 15 hours a week. So again, you reinforce that and we'll reinforce it when they get here. The professors reinforce it. Everybody talks about that, but that's an important message for your students. Okay, number 7. Which of the following subjects is likely to cause the greatest amount of disagreement between freshmen and their parents? Parents said grades and studying. Students said money. So you're worried about how much they're going to study. Yay, I just gave you the formula. Have that conversation. But students are worried about paying for school, and that's good. Students should be worried about that debt when they graduate. But we have lots of information that we can give them. We can help them with that type of planning. And so make sure that if they have concerns about finances, that they're asking us about that. And we can get them the information that they need. Okay, number 8, what grade point average do members of the freshman class predict they will earn for the fall semester? Parents said B, overwhelmingly. Students said A. I know, that's fantastic. We love that. Hope springs eternal, you know, that's good. That's a large percentage of students who say they're going to get an A. However, if that is a group that also said they're going to study 5 to 15 hours, we have a disconnect. And so I love the fact that they're thinking they're going to get A's. But again, it's just something that we need to talk about. Nationwide, about 68% of freshmen say they're going to get a B average. So our students, I think, are on the right track if they think they're going to get A's. So I'm all for it. Number 9. Members of this freshman class expect to earn their college degrees in. Parents said 8 semesters, and students said 8 semesters. They know what they're supposed to do, right? And that's great. We want them in and out too. That's why we have flat rate tuition. That's why we try to get them to take 16 credits every semester, so that's great. But the national average is about 5.5 years. So we have students that will graduate in 3, but we also have some students that never want to leave us, it feels like. So it's just something that they need to have a goal. You know, one of my kids changed his major 3 times his freshman year, studied abroad, never took a summer class, worked all through college, only 15 hours about a week, but worked all through college and still graduated in 4 years with the exact number of credits that he needed because he was driven. And so I think that's just something that we need to instill in our students, that this is their goal, and that's great. But again, we need to help them with that. And number 10. Which of the following is of greatest concern to this freshman class as it anticipates its first year of college? The parents said all of the above, and the students said all of the above. So they're worried about everything, and we are here to help. So we expect some of this. Some of the stuff that they're worried about is not surprising. But what we find is they're worried now, and sometimes their expectations are heightened about what college is going to be like. And when they finally get to it, it's not as bad as they were expecting. But if it is bad, we are here to help them. So these are all really good things to talk about. So we hope you are starting to think about the tough issues and writing down some talking points for the next 4 weeks. That's all we've got. So we hope that you're starting to have these conversations. But now we are ready for the fun part, I think. We're ready to start answering the questions that we've received, and you can keep texting them to us. Somebody in the back is giving me a feed of all the questions that you're texting. So we're ready to go. Are you ready, Fritz?
I'm ready.
Okay, this is his honestly, this is his favorite thing. So let's go. All right, so let's start with some COVID questions. We have a lot of COVID questions. So when will COVID protocols for infected students be released? Are we doing testing on campus? Do we have dedicated housing for isolation?
Yes, that's the answer. So the way this works is we put a lot of time and energy and resources into starting with as flat a slate as we possibly can. So every student and every employee will be tested at the beginning of the semester. In fact, when your sons or daughters move in, their first stop will be at the Northern Center. They'll go into the Northern Center, and then they will get their COVID test. Once they take the test, then they just kind of walk right on through, get the keys to their dorm room, progress towards moving in, and so forth. And so that's for everybody. That's for me, that's for Chris, that's for everyone. Everyone's required to do that. And it is and I always get the terminology a little wrong, but the PCR test, because I've already done this to see what it was like. It's really not, people seem to make up these horror stories about doing the test. Test took all of 20 seconds to do. It took longer to fill out the forms than it did to do the test. So pretty straightforward. And by the way, we're doing the test for 2 reasons. One is, if anybody comes in and is symptomatic, we will then immediately move them to another part of the Northern Center where our medical staff will begin working with them and really setting up isolation protocols right at that particular time. We've also set up then any positive cases, and then anybody through contact tracing. So if your roommate could test positive, then what's going to happen is you will move into the, for lack of a better terms, the isolation dorms. We set one whole dorm aside so that anybody that tests positive and anybody that's directed by the county health department can go into a bed during the appropriate period of time. We have also direct testing capability on our campus. So everybody comes in, they will get the full test. The results will appear between 24 and 48 hours. We've been getting them back within 24. We'll see once we're doing 8,500 tests. We'll see exactly how long it takes, but everything so far indicates within 24 to 48 hours. And then anybody symptomatic or anybody that progresses along will be able to do an immediacy of testing right here on our campus. This was an important investment for us to make. So that's the basic testing protocol. By the way, the other reason is it's really important for us to understand if there's any level of pervasiveness on campus. We've been pretty fortunate in the Upper Peninsula that the number of COVID positive cases have remained relatively small compared to most places in Michigan and around the country. And our commitment to the community is to keep that small. The last thing I would say, although I'm sure there are other questions, One of the reasons we decided to start school a week early and send everybody home at Thanksgiving, it is our hope that your sons and daughters will stay here, even if they test positive. We feel strongly that the best thing to do from a social responsibility standpoint, and we've looked closely at the Cornell studies on what that suggested, is to keep college students together on a campus with those that are positive and those that need quarantine or isolation set aside. So all of those protocols are in place.
Okay. What is the move-in date for freshmen in dorms?
Depends.
Yeah, it does.
That's my favorite answer lately.
It does depend.
It does. There is a sequence of where you sign up. We don't want to, the sort of the tradition, and I love this tradition, where what we would do is on Thursday morning, everybody would show up and it'd be this great crowd and wonderful interaction and so forth. And we've effectively dismantled it, because we only want 5 people to move in per floor at any one time. And that, we think, will be, according to our medical staff and the county health department, that will really make a difference in the being able to control COVID-19. So the answer is it depends on when you're signed up. Now, we're not going to chase anybody away from an assigned time, and then people have different travel arrangements and so forth. But that really is the goal, is to really limit the number of people at any one time moving into our residence halls.
The housing move-in email is going out in the morning, so that is when our students will be able to sign up for a time slot to be tested. And at the testing location, they will also pick up their dorm keys, their room keys, and if they pre-order textbooks, they can pick up their textbooks, they can get their laptop. All of that is going to be in one place. And so that email should go out in the morning, and then students can start signing up. Now, there was a question further down. A parent has two sons here. One's a freshman, one's an upperclassman, but they both live on campus. And what are the chances that they can move in at the same time? Very good. If by chance they go in and they can't get the same time slot, they just need to call housing, and we'll make that work so that you don't have to drive up twice from Lansing. We don't want that to happen. Okay. Did you talk about will parents be allowed to help students move in?
You're welcome to help them move in from the car into a wonderful cart.
Yes.
That ends your role. We really don't, we want to limit the number of people that go into the residence halls. So we're asking parents not to go into their individual dorm rooms. You can go into the public areas of the dorms, the lobbies, be able to use the restroom, be able to see that. But we really think it's important to respect how individual student rooms are done. And again, all with the desire to lower the probability of someone coming in that's infected.
Okay, after the fall semester, can students leave their personal stuff in rooms over break till winter semester starts?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, they don't have to move out at semester breaks at all. So yes, they can leave their stuff there. How and when can we order a bunk? Okay, these are the things that housing can answer, but I did get the answer to this one. So I'm probably not going to give Fritz all the housing questions.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, there's a housing video on your website, but also we will feed these questions to someone in housing, and they will respond to these very specific questions. But the loft information will be included with the room assignments, which are going out late next week. So all of that information you'll have in your hands by next Friday. Okay? Classes. What is the percentage of online-only classes being run?
So at this point in time, a little bit over 85% of our classes will be done face-to-face or have the face-to-face option. And that can mean a lot of different things on the different kinds of courses. Different faculty members have set up protocols in their classes. Some really want to do lectures virtually, but then hold multiple small group discussions. So I've talked to a couple of faculty members, that's how they think. Other faculty members are doing their classes so everybody can be there face to face, but also Zoom it at the same time, because if, say, a student becomes ill, and it could be not for COVID, it could be for any reason, you know, when the flu season comes in, which just, just adds to the complexity of this. We want students to stay in their room if they're not feeling well. And so the classes, many of the classes, if not most, will have that dual component. So students can do it that way. So about 85%, there is a smaller percentage that will be wholly online. And as that becomes finalized, the students will be informed of that. You can make changes to the drop-add period or so forth. As concerned we are for our students, we share that same concern for our faculty and staff. And some of our faculty and staff have underlying health conditions, and we have a real obligation to make sure we do everything possible to keep them safe. And so I think the balance is going to work. It's probably going to require some flexibility and give and take as we get going. But for those students, we made the shift to remote and online learning in 2 days in March. And we all learned an awful lot. The faculty are very adept at it now and creating the right balance. And the last thing I would say about this, the only group that I know that is more excited about face-to-face instruction than the students are the faculty. The faculty are very excited about having the students back in their classes.
There's some more COVID questions.
Okay.
Okay, and I know that you kind of touched on some of this, but okay. Will there be a quarantine period while waiting for COVID test results? I guess we need to emphasize that.
The answer will be yes. The one it won't be when you take the initial test. We'll allow people to move into the dorms and we'll monitor it carefully. Of course, if anybody shows any symptoms, the medical staff will be right there. And it may very well be that we need to move you into one of the residence halls. The hall we're using is Spalding Hall. May need to move you into Spalding Hall for 2 days if you're demonstrating symptomatic. But the physicians at the county health department have been terrific, and I have to tell you, our medical staff, our physicians, have been just extraordinary. Along with the nurses, the entire medical staff has really worked hard to make this happen correctly.
Once the students move into the dorm, do they need to stay there, or would they be able to do activities with their family if they're staying in the UP?
No, they can do stuff with their families. We would ask that they practice all the appropriate social distancing, wearing a mask when it's appropriate, and so forth. We're very concerned. We're not going to keep students cooped up in small dorm rooms. We want them to get out, particularly in the fall. We'll be coming in August. The weather will be spectacular. We want them outside. We want them engaged in doing things. We want them doing healthy activities, whether it's using the trails and riding bikes and, going for wonderful walks in the woods. I mean, all of those kinds of activities. We are even, maybe violating some rule right now, but we are working on developing a series of drive-in movies for them, which I think is just the coolest thing, that we're going to do that and be able to do this through a social distancing model right on campus. And so I'm very excited. Our theater folks have done an extraordinary job pulling this together. So we are committed to making sure that our students are able to engage with lots of healthy activities. We will, however, be really driving home the idea, no big parties, no big, you've seen images of some campuses and some places where there have been big beach parties and so forth. We're going to do everything we can to really limit those kinds of exposures, because our ability to stay face-to-face is going to be dependent on how we all contribute to it. And that's going to be very important.
My son would like to know if he has to leave campus immediately for the holiday break, or can he stay there for a couple weeks and then come home in December?
I don't know the answer to that question.
We are making exceptions on a case-by-case basis, but in general, the students should leave by Thanksgiving. Yeah. If the student has a reason that that he or she needs to stay, we can work that out. We do have students that stay over breaks, either because they're working, international students, they don't have any place to go, something. So we work with students all the time. But I can tell you that this year, the reason can't just be because I want to hang out. That's not going to be a good enough reason this year. So other years it would work, but now I don't think so.
Yeah, a little difficult.
Yeah, a little difficult. How are undeclared students helped by the advisors or the university to decide what career path to take? Also, are there career days during the semester?
I'll let you, the answer to all that is yes.
Yes, yes.
And Chris is going to tell you all the incredible things that we do for that.
It's so funny because I just had a big meeting today about career days, and one of the things that we're thinking about is using the drive-in movie tent for kind of TED Talk ideas with faculty, so that students can come and listen to faculty about their careers. And so we're working on that, on all of that. But yes, we have career information all the time. We will be doing virtual career or virtual job fairs this year, and we just signed up for a platform for that, which is very exciting. And actually, our employers are very excited about it because they can't travel either. Their companies have put travel bans on them, so at least now they can recruit. As far as undeclared students, our academic advisors love working with undeclared students. Honestly, they're the most fun group to work with because you get to really talk about what they like. We have tests that they can take to try and decide what they enjoy, what they like to study, because you could enjoy something but not want to study it. Well, you have to be realistic about what you're doing. You could have a miserable 4 years if you don't like what you're studying. So, but we work with students all the time about that. And we help students declare majors, find what they want to do. So that's what they do. That's what the advising staff does. Is there health care insurance for students? I know.
Is there health care insurance for students? The answer is no. One of the things that we are restricted from doing as a public university in Michigan is even requiring health care. But that said, any student can walk into our health center, and we take care of students. So a student walks in, we never turn a student away. We get them the help and support that they need. And so we tend not to have a problem with that. We think it's important that students have health insurance. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody. It opens up more options if they, would have to go to the hospital for something. I don't have any control over the hospital. But I can tell you our health staff is just absolutely first rate, and they take very good care of our students. And me.
And me. Okay, how will social distancing be achieved inside classrooms?
Really elaborate systems of social distancing in classrooms. If I could have bought stock in plexiglass just on what we've spent, I would be, very well to do. Virtually all of our classrooms have plexiglass set up. Every classroom is set up to meet the minimum distances of 6 feet. Many are much more than that. And so Students, for example, will be sitting behind plexiglass. They'll be required to wear masks. Our faculty will be in the front of the room. They'll be behind plexiglass. They'll be wearing masks. We think that model is going to work. What I found really kind of interesting is what's taken us a little bit of time is we've taken all of our small classes and put them in the big classrooms. That way, and most of our classes are small. And so that allowed us the opportunity to have a full class. And that, it was the really big classes, which we just don't have many of, that will probably end up in some sort of remote or online format or some sort of combined format. But how the classrooms are set up, I'm feeling just really confident. And there's be a sign on every classroom entrance about how many people are allowed in that room. And it's going to really require strict adherence to making sure that that's the case.
Yeah, all of this is virus driven. Right? So when students are hearing from a faculty member about what we're calling COVID modified courses, where you go to class one day and then one day you watch the Zoom lecture online, that is all driven by what Fritz just talked about with the number of students that can be in a classroom. So we're restricted, and so the faculty are doing the absolute best that they can to figure out how to make their courses the best that they can be. And they've been working on this since May. So they're really putting in a lot of effort to make sure that even those hybrid classes, or if they have to go totally online, that they are really going to provide first-rate courses for our students. What is the graduation rate? Is it high or low? And I guess compared to other schools, and what are the contributing factors?
So graduation rate's really an interesting number. It's really driven by the federal, what's called the IPEDS data. And the graduation rate only accounts for first time in college students. So if they started at that school. And so what happens is, if your son or daughter comes to us and then decides to transfer, even with a 4.0 grade point average, we list them as a failure, which is the craziest thing in my mind. I'll go on and on. This is sort of one of my bugaboos about how we count success. When we track just straight sort of graduation numbers, students that don't transfer, and by the way, we get more students that transfer in, we count them as failures too, because this wasn't their first college. So anyway, our success rate as we measure in terms of a student graduating or going to another university is about 87%. If we look at the pure IPEDS data, we're right about 53.
In 6 years.
In 6 years, yeah, everything's calculated on 6-year averages. Yeah. So right about that number. An important number to look at, though, is also our retention rate. When you compare our first to third semester retention rate, we're at about 78%, which for our peers is really high. When students come to Northern, they tend to stay at Northern.
Okay. Do I pay for a laptop rental if my child is bringing their own?
You don't pay for a laptop rental. We provide laptops to all of our students. One of my predecessors, President Bailey, had the brilliant idea in the 90s that we ought to have a level playing field for all of our students. So to make sure everybody had the same kind of platform, had all of the software, because it's not just the computer, it's all of the software they need for all of their classes. That frankly is the most expensive part. We're able to provide all of that as a function of part of their tuition. So we have a lot of students that they'll bring a personal computer, their own one, but really need the university provided one because it will have the software that's needed for particular classes.
And there's a special computer, iMac, for the art and design students, again, with everything on it that they need for their courses. Are there events like Siblings Weekend and Parents Weekend, Family Weekend?
In a normal year, absolutely. We relish those opportunities. Will we be able to do that this year? I think it's going to be very, very difficult to do this. I think what we want to do is we want the students to come here, to be here together and so forth, and stay here. Now, fortunately for us, we have a long tradition at Northern of students not wanting to go home. In fact, one of my favorite stories happened a couple of years ago. Mother called me up end of October and just kind of mad as all get out because her daughter hadn't come home yet. And she'd been there since the end of August. How could this be? And that I should go find her daughter and tell her to go home. And of course I thought, well, you must be from, you know, Detroit, Chicago, Nashville, wherever. And I said, so where are you from? She said, Marquette. And I paused, and I thought, oh, well, I don't know if I want to get into this family dynamic, but she said she is having too much fun. She doesn't want to miss out. And I heard there's a term for this now, fear of missing, FOMO, something like that. FOMO. Fear of missing out on something. And that's what happens with us because we are not a commuter school. Even though we have students that live in the area and so forth, the bulk of our students, you know, live either directly on campus or in the surrounding apartments. That's very much part of the culture that we have here. And we wanna build on that. And so, you know, even if your son or daughter does become ill, you may want to think long and hard about leaving them here with us because we stayed open when almost every other university in the state of Michigan closed last spring. We didn't. We didn't close. We didn't close our residence halls. We had between 700 and 800 students that continued to live with us because they felt so much safer. I had conversations with a number of parents that said, please keep my son or daughter there instead of sending them to where we are now. The incidences of COVID are much lower. I don't want them to get exposed or bring exposure to the parents, the grandparents, the community members, and so forth. And we take that commitment really seriously.
Okay. Is there any chance of the school not opening in the fall?
Well, you know, frankly, if the governor said we can't open, we can't open. But we don't anticipate that at all. All our plans are in place. A few last things to, you know, as you might imagine, there's just 1,000 details. But all those plans are in place. The classes are getting ready. We have every expectation that we will be fully open. About the only thing I can see at this moment in time is if the governor decided that, you know, all universities cannot open. But I don't expect that to happen. The governor has recognized the sort of, I don't know if it's right to say, the unique nature of the Upper Peninsula, northern lower Michigan, but because we've had so few cases, because I talk regularly with the CEO of the hospital, there's ample space at the hospital, ample supply of PPE. They tell me they've got everything prepared. They have no concern about us opening. So the reality is, you know, if I were betting most things, I'd bet on us being open. But again, there's always that possibility.
Okay, well, we have some Bigfoot questions, but I'll skip those.
Ooh.
Please
His
speak.
name's Daryl. I saw it on TV.
Please speak to how cafeteria services will be handled with attention to COVID-19 precautions. And my student also has a food allergy. How will that service differ?
Sure. I tell you what, our food service, first of all, any opportunity I get to brag on the quality of our food service, I do. I mean, it's just phenomenal, the quality of food service. We won't go to an outside vendor because we have such a strong tradition of quality food and quality delivery. So we learned a lot last spring in terms of how to do this in our main dining hall particularly, in terms of how spacing happened out, how we had a lot of students, what they would do is they'd let a certain number of students in, they'd run around all the stations. It's kind of like a big food court. Run around, fill up your stuff, then students have the option, many of them chose to go back to their rooms to eat. But here I think we're setting up enough distance within the dining hall, sort of following the 50% rule that the governor has established about restaurants. So we're following that. Again, lots of plexiglass, lots of materials that way. Food allergies, we actually have a room for students with food allergies. And all the student has to do is contact our registered dietitian, and they'll work with the student in terms of making sure that the right food is there. They have access to there's a term they use, an allergy-friendly.
Allergen-free, I think.
Allergen-free.
That's what they call
And they'll have special access, and only certain people can have special access to that. So I'm feeling pretty good about how the food setup is.
We've had lots of questions about what happens with classes if someone tests positive. So I think the thought is, does the whole class then get sent to quarantine?
Actually, not necessarily. So we, again, follow the directions of our county health department, Dr. Pickett. And what they've told us, it really depends on the type and duration of the contact. So if everyone is isolated in the room, someone tests positive, may very well be that we don't need to isolate anybody else with that. But that's a decision the health department makes with this. They're the ones that actually determine who's required to go into quarantine. And again, one of the great advantages we have here in Marquette, we have such a close working relationship. Being a small community, our physicians, the health department folks have worked so well together so far that we think this is going to work great. Okay,
is there a shuttle into Marquette?
Into Marquette, you mean like from downstate?
No, I assumed that meant from campus to town.
There is the bus system, which we provide for all of our students for free. They can just hop on the bus. I think they have to show their ID or something. So they get on the bus so they can use any of that. We also have been running a shuttle on Friday afternoons, to run out to, Meijer and Target and Walmart and all those kinds of things. I'm sure we'll be limiting the number of riders that are on the bus and how that shuttle works and so forth. But that turned out to be quite helpful for a number of students. Students have not had much difficulty getting around. Because the other thing that happens is somebody invariably brings a car, and they become the Uber driver for their, for their friends and neighbors within the dorm, which is sort of good and bad. You kind of have to make those decisions if you want your son or daughter to have a car, because I might as well answer the inevitable car question. Yes, freshmen can have cars on campus, but here are the three things you got to remember. First of all, they will be the Uber driver. Someone will come and say, hey, we need to go to Meijer, and off they go. Secondly, or we all want to go down to the falls, and we want to go hike here, and that's just kind of part of it. The second thing, you may not realize, it does snow in Marquette. And what tends to happen with our students is they get a little tired of shoveling out their car, so then they stop. And about 3 weeks of snow and plows going by, we've often had to come by and put big orange cones on top of a snow pile to let the snow plow drivers know that there's a car under there, don't hit this snow pile. And then it's hours of digging it out. Now, the good news is, I watch our staff with such amazement. This is not part of their job description. but I've watched them just kind of walk out and start digging out cars for students. It's really an extraordinary thing. If they're going to bring a car, above all else, bring a shovel.
Vital.
Vital. Cat litter's not a bad idea either.
That's also a good idea. One person says, I think I missed the answer. What are the mask requirements?
Oh, the mask requirements. Aren't these the coolest things you've ever seen? These are appropriate masks. Not like the mask Chris has. She doesn't have an official mask. We bought 20,000 of these masks. And of course, appropriately branded. And so we're very excited. Every student will get at least 2 masks. We encourage them to wash them. That'll be an interesting thing. Anyway, so the mask requirements are really the mask requirements that governors put in place, and that is, if you are indoors, wear a mask. If you're outdoors and you're socially distant, you're okay. That's kind of the rule with that. Again, we need everybody to comply with this because we want to stay face-to-face. And what will enable us to do that is everybody pitching in, engaging in social responsibility and doing this the right way. We're not going to be sending people running around and, with ticket books and, so forth. Somebody becomes, really flagrant about it, we might have to do something, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to wear masks. We'll give you 2. I'm sure your sons and daughters have lots of masks already. We prefer tasteful masks. I've seen a few already that I just kind of go.
Oh, it's going to be interesting.
A lot of creativity will be expressed in masks.
Exactly. For students that have not been very social through high school and are more reserved, are the resident advisors watching out for interactions among students and there to help if there are any concerns?
So you certainly described me. I was about as shy and reserved when I went off to college, and I think I spent the first 3 weeks hiding in my dorm room before fear I might have to talk to somebody. Oh my goodness. And then, of course, I made lifelong friends. And that's not an uncommon story. I asked our resident advisors once, I said, tell me what you do. And without skipping a beat, 2 of them looked at me and said, our job is to include everybody. And I was just so impressed with that. So we have this wonderful system in our residence halls called houses. So they all have, names, and it's an identity. It's roughly a floor or half a floor. Half a floor. And the RA's job is to really create a cohesive unit. And they try and do lots of activities together. They will go pound on doors and drag people out. Put a lot, come, you have to join us. This is, and they get people involved in ways that I'm so impressed with that. And it is amazing, even the most shy and reserved students, holy cow. I've had parents say, what did you do to my son or daughter? That's like we dropped off this meek, quiet kid, and now I have this one who just talks all the way home.
Yeah, the housing staff is amazing, and they really keep track of their residents to make sure that they're doing well. Yeah. So they're very good. They are wonderful people, and they really care about your students.
And we put a lot of effort into training them. Yeah. A lot goes on. They're going through lots of training. They know what to look for with students who may be in crisis. They know how to get students to referrals. I can't say enough about the whole housing staff.
This is in red, so I guess it means we've had it multiple times.
Oh,
so I'll
okay.
ask you, how will students keep up with classes if they are quarantined? Good question.
They'll study.
Yeah.
They'll study. The number one complaint I received from students when we went to remote learning was how much work it is to do it by remote learning. That was clearly the one. I had students that, and even parents called my son and daughter, they're just working so hard. If they're quarantined, You know, if their health permits, and our expectations for a lot of folks that would be quarantined, their health would permit, they should use it to study, to stay engaged, to Zoom into their classes. If you come down with COVID, it's not the reason for you to just disconnect, if at all possible. And we certainly understand different medical conditions, and we will make every accommodation possible with that, just as we did this spring semester. We made all kinds of accommodations that really helped a lot of students. So I think the bulk will be able to continue forward.
The faculty are really discussing this at great length. What will they do to help students be successful in this COVID-19 era? And that includes helping students who are quarantined or isolated. And they know what they need to do. And I have faith and trust in them that they're going to do what's right for our students. So I think it'll be good. It'll be different. You know, that's what we keep saying, is that it's going to be different, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be bad. It's just going to be different. And that, because we had a couple questions about activities on campus, and we will still have activities on campus. They just might be virtual, or they might be small group instead of large group, or they might be spread out in the dome instead of in a room, a smaller room where we usually have it. We might have more outside activities than we normally do, but there will still be activities. There will still be plenty of opportunities to get involved. In fact, we're starting a new effort this fall called Pick One. So it's our new catchphrase, what's your one? Because we know that students who get connected in the first 6 weeks of school are the most successful students. And so this Pick One campaign, what's your one? We want them to pick an activity, an organization, a job, a sports team, something that connects them to the institution. So your student will start hearing a lot about Pick One. And that's one of our efforts, and it just happened to coincide with COVID-19. We were planning to do it anyway, but good for us. It looks like we were brilliant. But anyway, that's starting, so hopefully that will help all of our students.
And again, I really do encourage them. When you call them up, you know, you'll say, so how's it going? And if they're like my kids, fine. Don't accept fine. Say, what's your pick one?
Yeah.
What organization did you try? Did you try something that is so outside of your comfort zone? Just a personal one for me, when my son was a freshman, I kept bugging him, you got to get involved in something, so he joined the crew team, of all things. The best man at his wedding was from the crew team. Yep. The 3 guys that he ended up living with through the rest of his college career were from the crew team. He didn't know anything about crew, and these were people with very different backgrounds. It was a marvelous experience for him.
Yeah, it's amazing what students discover here. That's what's truly inspiring to see, is what our students discover and how they find their place. And so we're still going to keep that going. I guarantee it. It'll just be different, but it'll be great. I think the rest of the questions, Fritz, are pretty specific to certain topics that I think we'll just farm out to others. So is there any?
Well, I do always feel I need to offer a couple of pieces of safety advice. You know, our commitment to the health and well-being of students is absolutely paramount. And there are a couple of things I really think is worthwhile talking about. One is we have this wonderful resource called Lake Superior. But Lake Superior can be a bit of a dangerous place at times. When the proverbial gales of November come rolling in, it's a spectacular thing to see from a distance. We've had problems, and we've lost students because they thought it'd be fun to walk out on the jetty, sneak over the fence, and you get swept away, and in that cold water, it's just an incredible tragedy. So talk to your sons and daughters about the importance of safety in this spectacular environment. And that means don't do things alone, you know? I mean, it'll get cold. Be with somebody. It can really, you know, I don't want to sit and cry with you because your son or daughter didn't practice those safe things. So, you know, just, it's not to say that it's overly dangerous or so forth. A little common sense goes an awful long way. The other thing is that I think you can help reinforce is that we do have students that decide to come and drink. And it's not my job. They're adults. I am not going to, I can't stop them from drinking. You know, there's nothing much I can do about it. And when I talk to students, I know when a lot of us do, we talk about the importance of staying in control. That's the critical issue. The problems we've had with students is when they lose control. They drink too much. They leave a cup at a party, and you don't do those kinds of things. Well, we have an amazingly safe campus and community. We have a kind of community where people really do watch out for one another. Don't walk across campus by yourself at 2 in the morning. If you need to walk across campus at 2 in the morning, give public safety a call. They've got a whole team. They'll send someone over, another student, to walk you back. It's just a prudent, safe thing to do. So have that conversation. As safe as Marquette is, one of the truly safest communities and campuses you'll find anywhere in the country. But that's not an excuse to lose that common sense. So a little bit of reminder, not preaching and so forth, but just kind of that reminder of little safety goes an awful long way, because that will, you know, their experience that they have here will be extraordinary. They will have friends for truly a lifetime. I get to see this all the time. I've joined in house reunions, the so-and-so house of 1967. I'd give you their name, but they were pretty wild. So, pretty wild at 70 years old.
Don't do that.
And so it's just a remarkable thing to see. And so the last thing is, again, and I've said it before, we are really committed to your sons and daughters. We think, they're very special. We take our responsibility that you've given us, that you've trusted us with what matters most to you, and we take that very, very seriously.
Yes, we do. Okay, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed it and are feeling a little better about leaving your student with us in August. If you have additional questions, you can submit them at the link in the description of the session. Someone on staff will respond as soon as possible. Good night.